You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Molly Apple and Joe Dunn. Jealous of someone? Listen to this.
Ladies, welcome. Super excited to present with you a power couple. I was just watching a really cheesy reality show and they're like, yeah, we're going to be a power couple. And I was like, you know what a real power couple is? A real power couple is my next guest, Molly Apple and Joe Dunn. They're relationship coaches, authors, lovers, and best friends. And they have a couple of award-winning books. One is Wild Monogamy. I love that. Cultivating erotic intimacy to keep passion and desire alive. And the book called The Soulmate Experience, which is a practical guide to creating extraordinary relationships. And they have revolutionary ideas for keeping long-term committed relationships connected, fulfilling, sexy, and super fun. So I just love that the two of you are doing this work and living the work, right? Rather, there's just so many coaches in this space that are talking about it, but they're not doing it. So I always say, learn from people who are practicing what they teach. So how did you get into the new book? Like, what inspired the whole topic of wild monogamy?
Some of it was material that we didn't fit into our previous books that was a little bit too spicy. And we just kept saving it. And like, we want to do something with this some point. And we finally decided, we were going to put it all together in one place.
7 years later, we came up with Wild Monogamy.
That's so amazing. And tell me what are your stats? How long have you guys been together?
21 years, just about, a week ago or so? Yeah, we just said 21 years together.
That's amazing. And when you work with couples, is there really such thing as the 7-year itch? Is it something that we want to start thinking about earlier? Tell me sort of what you have experienced in working with so many couples.
Yeah, well, we work typically with couples that are enjoying their relationship and want to keep it great. So we're not therapists. But definitely there is a function of time and familiarity that after a while, as they say, breeds contempt, but breeds, boredom.
Yeah.
If you don't do
disinterest
something about it. So one of my favorite things is when we've worked with people before they get married, a series of coaching sessions so that we can talk about all these things that might happen, probably will happen, and what you can do to stay not strangers to each other, but stay interesting to each other, because that's really key.
And tell me what does that mean and how?
So, for instance, one of the things I love is ideas for cultivating desire for your partner, and how do you do that over time so that it doesn't get stale and you stop seeing them.
Right.
And one of the things I love to do is take photographs when I see Joe doing something that I think is sexy. It happened this morning. What did I take a photo of him doing?
I was actually just bending over looking for my socks.
Yes. And his Levi's looked great. And I took a picture of it. And I love those pictures. I actually put a bunch of them together in a book for his 60th birthday with captions.
It was an amazing book. He really put a lot into it, and it came out great.
I love that. It's funny, when my mom passed away, and then my dad was dating this woman, and I will never forget that, because I was an long adult at this time. But anyway, and we were in Hawaii, and he was wearing his like jams, like big long swim trunks, and like, I'm going to bend over and get a towel. He's like, I know this is weird, but just take a picture. I'm going to send it to Georgie. But she loved it, right? Like when she got that, she was like, he's like, got the spark.
Yeah, he's definitely on the right path for sure.
Yeah, I mean, how does it make you feel when I take pictures of you like that?
Sometimes a little embarrassed, but usually I like it. It's very sweet, And I'm thinking, wow, she grabs her, she says, don't move. Let me grab my phone.
I love that. Well, also, like, I don't know about you, Joe, but for me, like, when my husband will say something about that, because sometimes I don't feel like I'm in my sexy self, like I'm chopping vegetables or I'm like running in between meetings, and he'll say something or do something like that. And I go, oh, wait, I forgot. Like, I'm actually like a woman. Like, he thinks I'm cute. I'm not just a doing machine. Because I think in our own minds, when we're with someone for a long time, we're just like on treadmills next to each other.
Right.
How do you change that?
Well, usually when Molly's chopping something in the kitchen, I'll come up from behind and grab her. So
Yeah, baby. Dangerous.
That's one way to change it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I absolutely love that he can see me as sexy and attractive in any circumstance.
Yeah, way more often than she can see herself sexy and attractive.
Yes.
Like all the time. Yeah.
Oh, see you, ladies. We need to remember that. Joe's reminding us all we got it going on.
Yeah.
So in your new book, you guys cover a lot around jealousy. And I think jealousy happens when you're dating. It can happen in relationships, even with someone who you feel like is pretty chill. And also, even if you've never, ever had an issue of cheating or infidelity or any of those things. And so I'm just curious, when you think about this really super important topic, can you just talk about what it does to the relationship, even if you're not voicing it? And I also would love for you to talk about not just jealousy of other women or other men, but also, like, we have a lot of people that are doing blended second families, right? Like, why are you spending all the time with your kids and not me? How come you're always on the phone talking to your ex about logistics? Or why is she still calling you and asking you for help with changing the smoke alarm battery? So can you just talk about the spectrum of it?
Sure. I think it's really helpful to distinguish two types of jealousy. And that's what we call irrational jealousy and rational jealousy. And rational jealousy would be in response to like an actual break in trust or something like that. I mean, Joe's...
Well, yeah, I've definitely had that experience. I had a girlfriend who was kind of a serial cheater. And boy, it really wore me down, and it wore our relationship down, and it really did a number on me.
And you felt jealous like all the time, no matter what she was doing.
I did. Even when our relationship ended and years later I was in a relationship with Molly, there was still, call it PTSD going on.
Yeah.
Right.
I give Molly a tremendous amount of credit because she was very aware of it, and she worked with it great, and she would try not to make me jealous about anything. And, when I would be jealous for no reason, which was always the case, right?
Yeah.
Anytime I was jealous with Molly, it was for no reason whatsoever, unlike my previous relationship.
Right.
So, but yeah, it was amazing how she handled it when she realized that, I really had
and really
jealousy.
yielded.
Yeah.
Really yielded. And what he was experiencing with me is what we like to call irrational jealousy. There was nothing I was doing. I was in my normal course of the day. I have friends. I have an ex I'm super close to. We have a child together. We're really close friends. None of that is threatening, but he sees it as a threat because of his past experience. Now, for a lot of us, we feel irrational jealousy because of things we tell ourselves, because of things we've been taught by the media to believe that if my guy is looking at someone else, I need to be on high alert and on guard.
Yeah.
Right.
What a message.
So what happens if, and what do you do with your client? Like, let's say you had a childhood trauma of like betrayal. Maybe your dad cheated or you were made to feel not important. And then you end up with someone who cheats, and then you're trying to date someone else or be in a relationship with someone else. When you get in those moments where you're like, I'm being jealous of the time he's spending at work, I'm being jealous of the time he talks to that, all those things we talked about. How do you, in the moment, what can our listeners start to think about or do?
In the moment, if you're feeling jealous and there's no obvious cheating going on or anything like that, the very first thing, and this sounds simple, but it's challenging, but it's the most important step, is do nothing. Do not let the jealousy control your words, control your actions. Do not respond out of that place.
Yeah, it probably won't go well if you do that. So
you've got to give yourself some time to breathe and take a look at where it's coming from, where it's really coming from. It's not coming from, if we go to a beach and there are women all around, and there always are, right? My jealousy is not being caused by those women or by my guy who happened to notice somebody. That's not where the jealousy is coming from. It's coming from what I'm telling myself that means, what I'm telling myself that ends. And we want to be able to quiet our minds a little bit so that we can look back and go, what am I believing here that's making me feel this crazy way?
So it's almost like what I hear you saying is you want to, first of all, have an awareness that you want to separate is this rational or irrational.
Yeah.
Right. And then if it's irrational, you want to understand you're having a feeling and almost like detach the feeling from all the thoughts and then kind of look at not reacting.
Yeah.
Like taking an irrational behavior to go really actually create something going, a problem in your relationship, and then do the work, whatever that is, self-soothing, whatever it is, so that you can actually take care of and calm yourself. So Joe, at the beginning of your relationship with Molly, you had to practice that.
I did have to practice it a lot. And, again, Molly was super aware. So she did like nothing to provoke any jealousy, but it was already there inside me. And, if I'd hear her talk to somebody on the phone with the door closed, it brought up all these old memories, and it was really triggering to me. So
one of the things we did, I'm remembering with this, is because we could have these conversations, he could tell me what was coming up for him, what he was remembering, how he was feeling. And once we started to help him simmer down and stop telling him those things that were making him feel jealous,
right,
we did an experiment of me actually talking with a friend on the phone with the door closed so that he could practice telling himself something different. That's one of the most important things to be able to do.
Okay.
Look at, what am I telling myself? Am I telling myself, oh, if we go to this party and there are attractive women there, Joe's going to be all interested in them and he won't give me any time and blah, blah, blah. I've got to reprogram what I tell myself. And this gave him an opportunity to practice that and find something that works.
Yeah, and this really speaks to what else you can do besides going inward and evaluating where these coming from. You can talk to your partner. If you're in a good relationship,
right,
your partner doesn't want you to be jealous, and they will do what they can to keep you from being jealous. And so I think that it's super important to say, hey, I've got all these messages that I'm giving myself. When you're on the phone with somebody, what can we do? How can we help? I'm not asking you to stop doing those. It's more that I just want to get comfortable with you doing these things that in the past would trigger me,
right,
and still have that tendency to do that.
So your partner could offer this sounding board for you to practice different ways of thinking about it, and also offer you that reassurance, even if it's 100 times, that it will heal it. If we give it that attention and make those changes and practice those new ways of thinking.
So I have a really practical question for you, and it's probably more your opinion, but a lot of people get jealous around the phone, right? Like, who are you texting? Can I see your stuff on the phone? What are you looking at? What are you looking at on Instagram? Right? Lots of things like that. And so I had this whole conversation once with my husband where I was like, who are you? He's like, why do you care who I'm talking to? And I was like, oh my God, he must be hiding something from me, right? And he's never betrayed me in any way. But it's just sort of like almost like, well, if you want privacy, then that means like I made that mean like, oh, you're hiding something from me. So talk about the phone thing, because I think people have relationships with their phone, inside their phones.
Right.
How do you have people, what do you tell people about that? Or how could you have that conversation and what's appropriate?
So part of it depends on how honestly trustworthy you feel your partner is, right?
Right.
If they've done anything, if they have done nothing, if they've actually done nothing, and we can determine that most of this is just fear, then we mostly want to work with what's going on up here. I don't want to be in a relationship where I have to monitor his use of his phone or his...
Right.
Or have me change how I use my phone or my computer.
Right.
Yeah. We have a foundational relationship that's foundationed in, trust and all of that. But of course, trust takes time to build. You don't have it automatically. And this is one of the ways of building trust is to have him be his autonomous self and be able to look at what he wants to look at without me getting in there and trying to get between him and his screen. I don't want to be in a relationship where I feel like I have to do that.
And not only that, if she's in a relationship where she's making somebody wrong for what they're looking at on their phone, it's not that they're not going to look, they're going to just go underground with it, right? So, and probably be resentful.
I think that's one of the things to talk about from the very beginning in a relationship is what we each okay. Is it okay if Joe looks at pictures of women on Instagram? If I have a huge issue with that, then we're going to have some conversations. Because
I think that's amazing.
Do I expect the person that I start dating to suddenly change their viewing behavior because they're in relationship with me? They're not going to like that. Most people are not going to go for that. So like Joe says, they'll go underground.
Right. And that's not going to create a relationship that feels safe or has trust.
It creates separation.
So we have a ton of questions in our book, Wild Monogamy, called The Intimacy Inquiry, about all these conversations that we think people should have before they get very serious and also continuing on through the relationship. Because having these kinds of conversations that are bringing up subjects that could destroy us if we don't know how to get a handle on them beforehand really opens both of us up to ways to address them when they do come up.
It's funny, when I was having that whole thing about the phone, when I was realizing for myself, I was like, oh, I'm just feeling disconnected right now. So I feel like if I could see what you're talking about with your friends or whatever it is, then I'll know what's going. And so I just said, I'm like, oh, the reason why I'm like thinking about this is like right now I'm feeling really disconnected. Like I need to hear more about your emotional interior. And he was like, well, that's easy. Okay.
That's
right. But I realized, like, for me, it was like, what's really, really going on here? Because it's rarely about that. And I don't want him to feel like, he has to monitor those things. So I'm intrigued by these questions. And then we'll kind of turn the ship, so to speak, around how this can help with romance and passion. But do you have another couple of examples from your book around some of these intimacy creating questions that are foundational things that people would think, well, I would never ask that, or
right,
it's not appropriate to ask that. Yeah.
What do we consider cheating? It seems like such a simple question because we say, okay, having sex with someone else is cheating. Okay, we all agree with that.
Yes.
But there are so many nuances these days. There's all this micro cheating and emotional cheating, and micro cheating to some people is looking at a woman in a bathing suit on Instagram, right? That's cheating to some people. So to have those conversations about here are 10 things that some people consider cheating and others don't. Let's have this conversation about them and see where we actually both are and what triggers you to even imagine. If you imagine me having a conversation with a guy or having a male friend and that feels like cheating to you, we're going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So
that's why these questions are best asked before you get deep into a relationship, so you kind of know where you're going. I mean, there's great questions in there for once you're in a relationship as well, but some of these might determine whether or not you really want to be in a relationship or should be in a relationship.
Because if you go on in head first and you're 2 years in and you realize how your beliefs are around this. On the other hand, it could point out to you that this is somebody that you would not be safe with, because emotionally safe, because you have a whole lot of insecurity in this area and this person has none of that. And to them, being as open as possible is their MO. So, so often we've seen when jealousy comes to a head that these people just aren't a great match. And a lot of people hear that, right? I want my partner to change. I want my partner to never look at another person. I want my partner to never be on social media when I'm not there.
If only my partner could not do this. So.
Yeah, it might not be a very good match. And at that point, it's a very difficult time because they really would prefer their partner to change in all these ways, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And then I could see when you were talking, I was like, oh, then someone could be like, if you're really confident and none of those things bother you, they would think, well, are you not interested in me? Do you not care because you're so chill? Yeah, that's so crazy. And most of these, and I'm sure you guys hear this all the time, but these particular topics are things that most of the time people never talk about until way later when it's happening, right? Or when they discover, why is it so weird when I say I'm going to go meet up with my, friend Jeff that I've known for 20 years?
Right. Other questions would be like, how do you feel about me being friends with my ex? How do you feel about pornography? How do you feel about racy song lyrics? I mean, there's so many things that trigger some people and not others. So great to have these conversations. Plus, these conversations just create intimacy.
They really do.
Right. And that's what you want to do, right? Is like and so what I love about what you're saying, and I think this is like a big giant myth buster for dating and relationships that I want to highlight, is we're so worried when we're dating, like, does he do this? Does he meet that? Is there chemistry? Like all the rules and all the things that you're working on, and conversations, you're like, I could never talk about that. But sometimes you're sleeping with someone, you're already sleeping with them, right?
You're pretty intimate.
I'm like, wait a minute. So real intimacy is also the emotional piece. So if the old ding-dang's in the wing-wang, back it up, right? Then I want you to feel comfortable to have these hard conversations, because intimacy is more than just, butterflies and rainbows. And like, we have great chemistry and we have so much fun together. So you guys are wise.
Can we reveal our fears to each other? Can I tell you that the experiences I've had that have been very difficult for me? And how do you hold that? Those are all important pieces of information when we're dating someone.
So important. So now, okay, so we've got irrational jealousy, we've got rational jealousy. Before we talk about how to sort of flip this, to use jealousy to add passion and excitement, we haven't talked about like rational jealousy. And I don't want to spend tons of time there, but if that's going on in the relationship, what are the steps that someone can take?
Right. I mean, if it's rational jealousy and he's dating someone who is a serial cheater, I mean, there was really no recourse for him.
Yeah.
She wasn't going to change. I mean, you tried to get her to change.
I did.
Right?
Yeah. And it didn't work.
And this is a common thing, that we're trying to get our partner who's a cheater to change. They may not be interested in that. And so often that's the answer and people don't want to hear it. So that's the tough part.
And I think that it, continuing on in a relationship like that can be damaging, not only for the relationship as a whole, but also for the person who is, feeling that jealousy and, try to stay in a relationship that has rational jealousy. Like for me, I kept saying, well, it must be something about me.
That's cool.
Right. That's causing this jealousy or this, infidelity to go. Yeah. So, and that went on for a long time.
Yeah. So
and it was
If the partner is willing to have a conversation with a third party, that's almost always necessary in those cases.
Okay.
The
So
third
you
party
can
not being the
come
one
back.
dating with.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a threesome, kids. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about when you get in that space, Joe, right? And you start to believe like, oh, well, maybe it is me, right? That person can, especially depending upon how, manipulative they are or whatever their own dysfunction is, being told like, oh yeah, like, and I was joking, but like, oh yeah, like, well then let's invite this person into our relationship, or let's do these things, or let's have an open relationship. I think it's really important to stay grounded in who you are so that you don't go like, oh, well, maybe it is me and this is the way to save my relationship. Do you want to just speak to that? Because I think that does happen, even though I was kind of making light of it.
It does definitely happen. And I think that's a terrible way to continue on, is to, invite another person into your relationship when your relationship already is really rocky.
Right.
Right. It's something that a lot of people try as a solution that I think rarely works.
That's really why we wrote Wild Monogamy right there, because we were coaching so many people who were trying open relationships or polyamory when they really weren't ready for that. They didn't have the strength of connection in their primary relationship to make that work. They were doing it because they thought it might be a solution.
Well, there you go. There's the truth. I love that. Okay, so now let's talk about how handling jealousy is appropriate, and we have these conversations, and we want to set up like a long, sexual, healthy, passionate relationship over time. What you talk about in your book is like, can you use a dash, like cayenne pepper? Can you use just a dash to add some passion and excitement to your relationship?
Yeah.
Too much cayenne and forget it. But just
yeah, exactly. Just enough, and it's like, yum, this is the light. It's got the flavor.
Just enough jealousy. This is one of my very favorite topics. The idea that once we get a handle on it and we're not controlled by jealousy, and if we're in now there where we feel safe together, then we can start this tiny little experimentation. And for instance, one of the things that we do is we'll pretend to be single for 10 minutes, right? Or half an hour, like walking around a farmer's market together, but at a distance.
And maybe across the street from each other, so we can still get an eye on the other person.
And it's just this feeling like to see him and think, oh, he's single and he's walking through this farmer's market and he might meet somebody. And just, I like to tell myself those things, and it gets me like, oh, I start to see him with new eyes from a new perspective.
Yes.
As a compliment.
I think that's a great, as a compliment. But that, it's funny that you say that, because I think I might be doing that without even realizing it, right? Like sometimes at a farmer's market, as we do, we like to dabble in the veggies. The guys don't want to be the purse holder, so they go on their own way. Yeah. And I've had these moments actually last summer where I caught my husband, like I caught a look and I was like, oh, that guy's cute. And then I was like, oh, wait, that's my husband.
Yes.
But I like this little flip of like, oh wait, other people probably think he's kind of handsome too. Like he's mine. Like that feels kind of sexy if I add that little twist to it.
Yeah,
you've got it.
There was a time we were out at this tapas bar we like to go to, not topless, tapas.
They're not spicy people.
And he went up to the bar to order us drinks, and a woman walked up and stood right next to him and started talking to him. And I'm like, oh, she thinks he's cute. Oh, and I got it from the table and I walked so that I could stand a ways behind her and look at him the way she was looking at him, from the same perspective. And I just loved it. Like I could feel the butterflies happening. And he was obviously engaged and felt charmed by her. And I loved it. And I feel so good that I'm not the person that has to run up and stop the conversation, interrupt them, protect my interests and all of that. Like I can use this situation.
I think she took me home like right after I came back to the table.
You're like, hey, come on, Joe, let's go. I love this idea because I've had moments like that too, Molly, where like my husband's talking to someone, he'll come back and I'll be like, like that girl you're my man, right? Like she thinks, but and then I just sort of got that like, but that makes us feel, and I think I've been talking about this a lot especially if you're like over a certain age, we forget that part of ourselves, the vital, the sexy, the like, I'm alive, that we were in we have the wisdom, right? And healthy emotional intelligence to have that without being a crazy, jealous 16-year-old. But it is women, at least, and Joe, you can talk about what it does for men, but I know for me, it just makes me feel like young again, like whole, or more like who I really am, not just like this person who's been on the planet a certain amount of years. What does it do for men? How does that work for you?
It's a similar reaction. In our dynamic, it took me longer because I was still dealing with the PTSD from years past.
Right.
But eventually I came around, and now we can play all these games, together. And I look at her and I think, wow, she's going home with me tonight. She may be flirting with that guy, but she's coming with me.
Oh, that's so cute. I was watching the beginning of a really bad Christmas movie because there's so many Christmas movies on, and my family were trying to watch a Christmas movie, and it was an old one, but it was with Jennifer Aniston and tall guy. Oh my God, I'm blanking. Vince Vaughn. Anyway, and this is so great for what you guys are talking about. The setup is the girl's sitting at the bar, Reese Witherspoon, I think, and she's having a drink, and the guy comes in and starts talking to her. He's kind of nerdy, and she's like, look, this isn't going to go anywhere, and she's kind of like, just whatever. And then she's like, I have to go. And she walks out, and then he stands up and he's like, hey. And he, sends this thing. Anyway, it turns out they're totally married. And they're just like, they're just doing that thing, right? And he's sort of like, you can't, whatever. And anyway, it's really cute and playful. But I just thought it was like, wasn't it ridiculous? Like sometimes we see these role-playing things in the media or whatever, and it just feels like so overdrawn. We can't see ourselves doing that if we don't see ourselves playful. So how can you sort of like warm up to these ideas of having these fun experiments or playing in this way without feeling like you're in a bad porno or something?
Yeah. This is maybe not a warm up, but we had this experience once where I was sitting at a wine bar waiting for him to show up. And when he showed up, I don't know why these words came out of my mouth that, oh, you're more handsome than they told me you would be. And he took the bait and he sat down and he started playing. And I thought this little game would last for a minute. And it was so much fun that he was pretending to be somebody I'd hired for the evening. And the company next to us started listening in, and we were both...
They were leaning in so they could hear everything.
And it just got us all... We got so excited about this, and it probably went on for an hour where I started talking about other dates I'd had. He started talking about other women he'd been with, and we were keeping it,
It was edgy, but not X-rated.
But the fun part was that other couple their whole night was spent listening to our conversation. We had so much fun that night.
You're the couple listening now. You know the truth now about Joe. They've been together for 17 years. I love that. So, any sort of last ideas about how if you're ready to play on the just enough jealousy edge?
Go slowly.
Yeah. You definitely want to be able to have these conversations with your partner before ever trying something like that. And be able to talk about, when have you felt jealous? What triggers you to feel jealous? What are you telling yourself at those times? What experience have you had in the past that caused you to feel jealous? So you want to be able to have gone through all of that and also be able to ask for the reassurance. What kind of reassurance would be helpful to you if you're feeling jealous? What do you want to hear from me?
These are all such great, it's so funny. It's like very simple phrases that someone gets, I always believe like you hear exactly what you need when you need to hear it. And you're like, oh, it doesn't have to be complicated. There is a way to be a grown up, to have a conversation, to get my needs met, and to truly be partners.
Yes.
When you are in these very common things, and you guys have been together a long time, to know that if it's not now, it probably will happen later. And that you use the foundation and you grow from that challenge by having that open and honest communication.
And then the next time we go to a party, like, let's spend a little time being apart and watch each other from across the room and see if we can catch a little bit of that feeling of
that spark.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great one of my friends. Oh, go ahead.
I said no, and we only
Joe.
can.
Yeah, no, for sure. I had a friend once. She was very wise. She's been married for almost like 35 years. And she said, you know what I love? I love going out with my husband, with other couples, or in a public place and watch him be charming and like see him through other people's eyes. It reminds me to see him through new eyes. And that's really what you guys are talking about. Is ultimately at the end to keep seeing your partner as a person, as your honey, as your sexy other half, but to get yourself in situations to do that and to be conscious about it, because it just doesn't happen when you're just chilling watching Netflix day in, day out.
No, it doesn't. Little intention goes a long way.
Yay, I love it. Well, ladies, you got to get this book. I mean, whether you're single or in dating relationship, you want to go to wildmonogamy.com because those questions are like freaking game changers. In the show notes. So grateful to have you here and be a guest on the show. Ladies, oh my gosh, so much in this juicy episode to life check yourself. So share it with a friend. If you have a friend who's always complaining that her partner is talking to other people, do a little gifty. Just copy the link forward. Heard Molly and Joe, thought this might be helpful for you. You can always find me on Instagram, Marni Battista _ on Facebook, Marni Battista, and whatever you do, don't ever forget, it's always important to life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Battista, and let's talk soon.